Want to welcome everybody to Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close. We're here after each and every Iowa men's basketball game all year long. We've got a special treat this evening. We want to welcome in our steady Eddie, or steady Gary, as we should say, Coach Gary Close to our show. And Coach, first of all, before we get to our special guest for today, and of course the Iowa victory, which Iowa rolling into late February, we can talk about it. I want to give you my condolences. I know you're in response to Sunday's Super Bowl loss. You actually were so distressed. You were so inconsolable that you actually left the state of Wisconsin. So talk a little bit about how you're feeling.
I still haven't gotten over it. I could go on forever about that game. That was a wasted opportunity because I don't think the best team won, but a lot of times in sport, the best team doesn't win. And I'll give Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid credit. They outplayed us by just a little bit with a little help from the officials. We don't like to talk about the officials, but holy cow, they were bad.
I knew we were going to go there. You don't like – here's the deal. Here's the weird thing about this. You don't like talking about the officiating. I texted you at the end of that game. And I don't know if I think I said weak call. I don't think you ever responded to that message. So did you agree with my comment there, or how did you feel about the holding call?
The holding call's terrible. It's terrible. I mean, that stuff was going on all game long, and now you're going to – I'd like to go back. I don't know if there was a pass interference call made the entire game, and then they're going to make one with a minute and a half left when the ball's thrown nearly out of the end zone. I mean –
I agree.
Bad. I mean, it was by the law, it probably was pass interference, but most of those guys, they try to figure out what they're going to get away with during the game, and now they know, and then all of a sudden it changes, and it's kind of like you don't allow hand checking or allow hand checking the whole game long, and then the last 5 minutes you decide to call it, and that's what drives coaches crazy. There were a few other calls that I thought were really mind-boggling, but the bottom line is that they had their chances and didn't get it done.
Real quickly, I just wanted to comment, just to correct, it was pass interference, and the reason why it was holding. The reason why that's significant, it was not pass interference, Gary, is because the pass was uncatchable. So the only way they're going to be able to get away with that call is by calling it holding, which by the books, as you said, it probably was. But boy, I agree with you. Bad time to make that call. And I simply made a comment on Twitter after the game. Like it or not, and Chiefs fans can celebrate the Super Bowl win, but they had two huge calls at the end of two huge games, and I'm talking about the AFC Championship game and the Super Bowl, that largely assisted them in their Super Bowl run. So it is what it is. The Eagles will be back, though, as you know. I mean, I think that's the most talented team in the league, and I thought Jalen Hurts outplayed Mahomes, and as you said, I think sometimes the best team doesn't win. Andy Reid is a brilliant play caller, though. Some of the play calls in that game, it's week after week, just incredible. Anyways, I digress. Let's talk about something good. We've got a couple of special guests in with us this evening. We actually have Coach Close here for a few minutes. We're going to let him slide, then we're going to continue the rest of the show with former Hawkeye Devin Archie, who is going to give us an interesting perspective. Devin, good to see you, sir.
You as well. Thank you for having me.
And
welcome,
of course,
Devin.
Thank you.
Also got Frank Henderson. We're all familiar with Frank. He's been on the show a couple of times. Tony Perkins' uncle and former AAU coach. I got
to ask Frank, did he teach Tony that Euro step we saw earlier in the first half?
I think that was what you want to call the South American step. I don't think it was a Euro step in that case. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Whatever it was,
I don't know what that was.
Was that a travel, Gary?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right.
I didn't call it.
Well, let me just lead with this. Another big night for you. It's fitting that you're on here with us this evening, Frank, because Tony's picking up a stride right now. You look at his offensive numbers tonight, 24 points, 3 assists, 1 turnover. What's changed here in the last couple of weeks with your nephew?
I mean, let's start off. You're probably wondering why I'm wearing sunglasses on this evening, but I'm wearing it because I think the Iowa future looks pretty bright. So when I was watching the game, I was pretty impressed on how we came out attacking and strong, and just all around being aggressive, make up for the loss at Ohio State. But I think tonight was a good win for him, confidence booster for him. I think overall the entire team, it was a good confidence booster to get that win and win by 20.
Gary, your thoughts on Tony right now? Because obviously for the game, he was Iowa's leading scorer, and this is not the first time he's been Iowa's leading scorer this month. What have you seen that's been different out of Tony of late?
Well, we had talked about it earlier. I think he's allowing the game to come to him, and he's just making really good decisions of when to attack, when not to. He's just in a really comfortable position right now and taking advantage of it. And he's obviously talented. So it's when you have good guard play like that, it really helps your chances. And both he and Aaron are coming on strong, which is great to see.
Devin, you obviously, I don't know how close you are to Tony, but for people that don't know, you've coached with Frank, and you're in the Indianapolis area. So, what have you seen from Tony, and does it surprise you how much he's actually scoring the ball? I mean, I don't think we've really seen this side of Tony since he's been a Hawkeye.
Yeah, no. So I've known Tony for a while. I'll say since his junior year, sophomore year in high school. But personally, I think I'm proud of him. I see him getting comfortable. When he played with us, he could score at will. You know, he was a very high IQ player. So to see him get comfortable on the floor now and find his reads and make the right plays, I'm proud of him. I just want to see Tony get a little more consistent as far as points goes. He had, like, I was looking at his stats. He had 32 against Illinois. Then the game after, he had 8. You know, that's a big drop off. So if I can get some consistency out of him, I think he'll be fine.
Gary, I'll just say this. There have been people over the last 5 years that have taken shots at Fran for playing his sons too much. I just want to say this once and for all before anybody else does. Connor McCaffrey has been the MVP this month, as great as Tony Perkins has been. That's my opinion. I think Connor has been the MVP, and it's got nothing to do with the 13 assists tonight. That was a career high for him, Gary. But he just is making plays all over the court. And I think you brought it up on one of our recent shows. He's playing like a guy who sees the end of his career
right
down the road and doesn't want it to end. Talk about what we're getting from Connor right now.
Well, he's playing terrific. Some of those passes tonight were just unbelievable. Not only were they, great vision and things like that, but he put them just right on the money where people can score. A lot of times a pass is a little off and it affects the shooter, and his vision is terrific. I'm not so sure. He may have had more assists than the entire Ohio State team had. And that kind of speaks volumes. And he probably was close to the leading rebounder, if not the leading rebounder. So he just does things to win games. He just like we talked about the other day. He doesn't care about how many points he scores. He just wants to win. Yeah. And whatever it takes to win, he'll do it. And he is really playing well right now. 7
points, 6 boards, which was a team high, 13 assists, no turnovers. That's impressive to say the least. And it was brought up on a recent, I think it was a caller that actually initiated it, Gary, and you kind of bought into it at the time. It does appear like Fran has tightened his rotation. I mean, he is not allowed a real long leash for Josh Dix. Sante Bowen's not getting playing time right now. I hate to say, not getting meaningful minutes. We even saw at the end of this game, I wanted to ask you about this, Gary, as a coach. You saw Josh Dix and Sante Bowen come in. Peyton Sanford was in the game. Iowa didn't look good out of a press. Peyton Sanford turns the ball over, and there's like 3 minutes left. Iowa's up by like 25, and Fran yanks all of them and puts Chris Murray and his starters back in. Did that surprise you, and is that just more of a result of Fran recognizing that, hey, we're getting to March, every possession matters?
Yeah, I think it's a teaching point. There's something there that he did not like at all, and let's let it slide by. He wanted to make a point of it and yank them all out. So I'm sure he got his point across to the guys that came out. And I think the other thing is that, the last thing you want as a coach is to see your team get sloppy and lose concentration. It's hard to do when you're up as big as they were. And so I think that had something to do with it as well.
Mm-hmm. Gary, one thing I did notice in this game is that Fran was very, very animated. And I've noticed that in the past month, even maybe the past 2 months. I go back to the Wisconsin game. He got as mad as I've seen him get in years. Have you noticed that he's a bit more on edge this year? And why do you think that might be?
Well, I think the way the league is so jammed up right now, it's a crazy league, and every game is huge. And you don't play well, you can lose 2, 3, 4 games in a row, and then all of a sudden you go from being in the tournament to being out of it. And so these games are all crucial. I think he was worried about this game, and because of the 2 games that follow. And Ohio State has really been struggling of late, and I think it's just where we are, getting close to March and trying to get this team to be as best as it can be, because you're going to get to the point where once you lose, you're done. And he wants the team to be playing as well as it possibly can when that time comes around to give them the best chance of advancing.
Frank, you talked about the bright future. How far can this team go if they continue to get production out of Tony like they are? If Connor's giving you almost no turnovers and, anywhere from 6 to 10 assists a game, and Ulysses hitting threes like he did tonight, how far can this team go?
I mean, it's kind of like to Devin or Coach Archie's point. I mean, he made a good point. He said this team needs to be consistent. He said Tony needs to be consistent. That's very true. I think this team needs to be very consistent on who they are and who's their real identity. We can't have a win by 30 and then we lose by 10 the very next game. Well, poor performance from all around players, especially for Tony. I preach to him, and Devin's preached to him as well. We can't have 26 one night and then 4 the next night. If this team collectively, I think last time we talked about this score, it was like this. Iowa has pretty much the deepest team in the Big Ten as far as scoring, all around performance and rebounds, assists, and scoring, and going into depth into your bench. They can pretty much win the Big Ten. Now, teams that make me fearful is kind of like the Purdue's and the Michigan States and even the Marylands. Those teams can get hot at any point in time and go on a run. But if Iowa collectively, between Chris, Connor, Patrick, Aaron Eulens, Tony, Peyton, Josh Dix, who else am I missing? Even DeSante getting some meaningful minutes. Even Josh, even if he gets many more meaningful minutes, even when we played against Purdue, I think we had a chance with playing Josh a little bit more. But I mean, Frank can go 8, 9 deep in his bench, and not a lot of teams can say that confidently with their team. So I mean, getting to the Big Ten championship shouldn't be a surprise for us. I mean, as long as we're playing consistent ball, I believe we should get an NCAA bid by the schedule we've had and the wins we had. I know we had some terrible losses that kind of knocked us down some, from the naysayers. But I think, Iowa can make an impact. Like you said, it just goes back to being consistent. That's what we just want as Hawkeye fans, and just moving forward, just consistency amongst this team.
Gary, I got one final question for you before we let you slide, and you're not getting any younger, so you need your beauty sleep. I want to give a quick shout out to want to give a quick shout out to Iowa Smokehouse. Of course, they're sponsoring our coverage here from the Hawkeye of the Storm throughout the month of February. Check out their awesome snacks. You're supporting an Iowa company, better initiative than that. And of course, a sponsor here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Visit iowasmokehouse.com. Tasting is believing. Whether it's their jerky, their meat sticks, maybe their steak bites, or some of their sauces. They've got ketchups, they've got barbecue sauces. Again, no need to look anywhere else. Visit iowasmokehouse.com. Use that code Hawkeye. It's a code Hawkeye for 15% off your order, and you get free shipping with a $50 order or more. And of course, Brad Van Meter and his team down at State Farm. Small team, great rates, great service from Brad and his team down at State Farm at 4229 Fleur Drive in Des Moines. Visit him online at bradvanmeter.com. or call him for a quote, 515-256-6480, 515-256-6480. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can find the links to all of our sponsors in our description. Gary, Ohio State, this game starts, and you texted me, first 1 to 100 wins, and I know you were joking. But, boy, these two teams we were in the 20s within the first, for like 5 minutes of the game. And I thought to myself, this is kind of going the way the first game in Columbus went. But it was kind of the opposite in some respects, because once Ohio State went through a drought, it was over. I mean, it does seem like they've, I give some Sensabaugh credit. I thought, is it McNeil made some threes tonight?
Yeah.
Zedkey's a tough guy. He should have went out in the first shoulder issue. Looked like he dislocated it momentarily. That's what I think happened. I know he's had issues with that shoulder, and he said, no, I'm okay. And then it happened again. You get the guy out of the game. You can tell he's a fighter, but it does seem like that team has maybe mailed it in.
Well, if it's a possibility, they got off to a terrific start. Actually, I thought they shot the ball well the whole entire game. I don't know what their percentages were. The problem was they couldn't hold on to the ball. I mean, they had a ton of turnovers, and their defense was not great. And when you turn the ball over against a team like Iowa, they're going to make you pay for it. I mean, they're just going to take it run it right back down your throat and score. So it's late in the year, and they're on a long losing streak, and they're not playing well. It's a young team and a team kind of put together, and so they're having a hard time sustaining 40 good minutes of basketball or even close to that. And when you play as a team as good as Iowa, if you don't do that, then you got a chance of being run out of the gym, which is what happened in the second half.
3 ball better than Iowa. They were 8 of 15 from 3. But again, and they're 11-11 from the free throw line. But you mentioned it, 14 turnovers. Iowa dominated the glass. And I don't know. Holtman's a weird one, Gary. I know you're not going to rip on any Big Ten coaches, but I don't know. It's an interesting one because I don't know that that's a lack of talent with Ohio State.
No, they've got some talent. It's a bit of a puzzle. I think it's a lot of new pieces, and they just have not melded as a team at both ends of the floor. At parts of the game they look terrific, and then they just kind of disappear. And that's the risk you run when you bring in a lot of new players. It's hard to put them all together and mesh, and I think they're still fighting that.
And Frank, of course, mentioned Maryland a little bit ago. They took down a bit of a lull now, Gary. They've lost 3 of 4.
Yeah. Most of the teams in the Big Ten have hit a rough patch. Purdue's about the only one that has avoided it, and all of a sudden, it's starting to happen. So they probably got a big enough lead that they can hold on, but they're making it interesting.
They certainly are. And Northwestern, boy, rolling right now, knocking off Indiana again last night. You got a sold-out arena there in Welsh Ryan Arena in Evanston on Sunday. Final thoughts. We're going to let you go, Gary. Just final thoughts on that game. It should be a lively crowd, and a game where Iowa will probably be the underdogs, but an opportunity at a really, 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 really good win.
Yeah, they've got their hands full with these next 2 games. Northwestern beat both Purdue and Indiana last week. I mean, their schedule, if you look at it, is just daunting. I mean, and for them to get those 2 wins is really a feather in their cap, and that place is turning into a tough place to play. So it starts with their guards. Their 2 guards are terrific, maybe as good as 2 guards in the league, certainly right there. And it's going to be a good test for Tony and Aaron, because I think that's where the game might be won, is which backcourt gets the advantage, because those Northwestern guards are experienced and playing very well. So really, really, really looking forward to seeing that game.
Well, Gary, we appreciate you joining us from your vacation. Enjoy the golf and enjoy the weather. I hope so Iowa City, the reports are...
Got a little snow today, huh?
Yeah, almost a foot. Actually, that's what I was told right before jumping on here, that the final reports out of Iowa City were about 11 inches.
And it's heading towards Indiana.
Is it?
Come on, Coach. Don't put. Come on, Coach. Come on, Coach.
We directed it towards Indiana.
No, I heard it's going to Canada. It's not coming in.
Gary, enjoy your vacation, and as far as time goes, sweet dreams.
All right. Nice to be on with you guys.
Take care.
We'll talk to you Sunday.
Right, take care, Coach.
Yep.
All right. We have got the phone lines open, folks. I wanted to get as much content in there as possible before we let Coach Close slide. The number, if you're new here, to call in is 515-635-1601. Iowa Smokehouse sponsoring our call-in line, so definitely take advantage of the ability to ask a former Hawkeye and Devin Archie a question, or perhaps Frank Henderson. 515-635-1601. I also dropped the link to the StreamYard service in the description. You may have to refresh the feed, or I'll throw it up in the live chat again. But again, call into the Iowa Smokehouse line by either option. All right, we've got Tony, who's been on hold. Tony, Welcome to the show, sir.
How you doing? Frank, I'm disappointed. I got some sunglasses to join you, and you've already took them off and everything.
Hey, let's bring it back, Tony.
Hey, let's do it. Yeah.
We looking like the Men in Black Part 4.
Frank likes people named Tony.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Frank, I remember listening to that podcast you had with Corey, like the mid-season review. You were saying, was it when you came on or something like that, that you might let us know when the merch for Tony's coming out or something like that?
Yeah, so we did an initial launch right before Thanksgiving. I think we'll do another initial launch the week before Big Ten play. But I'll keep you guys posted. I'll let Corey know, and he'll let everybody know, and the Hawkeye fans know as well. Once that link drops, everybody can grab a TP merch, TP hoodie, and represent. So I'll let you guys know. It'll be in store soon.
I mean, he has an amazing and probably the best first name out there, so I've got to get something.
Hey, it'd be a good look. You know, you can say it's your brand as well, Tony.
Yeah. Hey, Devin, I had a few questions for you. Number one, can you give us the perspective of the talent jump? Because you played high school, obviously. Then you went to Vincennes, or I don't know how to.
Yep,
they were D1 JUCO or D2?
They were Division One.
Okay, and then you made the jump to Division One basketball, and like the differences between each level.
I think the biggest jump was probably from high school to Vincennes. Vincennes was a D1 program, but I want to say the 6 guys on my first team there all went high major or mid major. Devin Dumas, IU, Boyan, TCU. We had a guy at Indiana State, another guy at Bradley. So practice was competitive, and I think that's what kind of helped me grow as a player. Because I didn't really start playing basketball until I was junior in high school, so I had to pick it up quick. But then getting to the Big Ten was a whole different monster, just a lot more physical, a lot more structure, and it was just different in general. So,
and then what about because you had the ACL or something like that with Licklider or something like, and then you were on Fran's first team when you started to play. Am I remembering that correctly?
So I dislocated my clavicle my first year.
So, and that was with Coach Licklider, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And then how did that work as a coaching change? What goes into that?
Oh man, it was tough for me because Fran was my 4th coach in my 5 years there, right? And so when you have that many coaching changes, you have to keep adapting. And then it's just like, I don't know, it's already difficult to, I would say playing at the level is difficult enough, but in order to really progress and grow and develop, you need somebody who's going to be consistent with you. And I didn't have that consistency because of the change. So
just difficult, like having that many coaches and that many years.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then, let's be honest, Devin, let's just call it styles couldn't be stylistic.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
Fran, did you fit into Fran's system? I mean, did you consider transferring? How did that transition go from a stylistic standpoint?
I'm long and athletic, so I think my weak point obviously is my shooting. But as far as like rebound, defending, finishing around the basket, I could do all of that. I think more for me was more the mental side that I was struggling with. I was dealing with some off the court stuff, so dealing with that off the court at that age and not really having anybody to help me push through it made it hard for me to perform on the court. So.
And then did Frank say you're coaching nowadays, or?
Yeah, so Frank is the one who got me into coaching with Tony. So with Tony's group, I saw him out. Me and Frank been knowing each other since high school, elementary. I saw him. I wanted to get involved in coaching, and then from there, I joined this program, and it's been there since. So,
a couple of things I was going to close out on, Corey. The first game we played Ohio State, our assist to turnover was 15-14. Tonight it was 23-7.
Yeah,
that makes a world of difference. It's almost like the result just flipped.
Harder to handle the ball on the road. I think that's one thing. But boy, like I said, the Connor McCaffrey effect, and everybody took care of the ball. Nobody had more than Chris actually, ironically enough, Chris had 3 turnovers. But as far as Iowa's guards are concerned, Ulis had 1. Tony had what did I say? Did he have any? Tony had 1. Connor had 0. Dix had 0. So yeah, I mean they're taking care of the ball, right? I mean that's. I think that's that game on the road. I think Fran would, if you asked him, he'd probably say that they haven't played as badly as they did that night. I mean, that is just collectively what we saw the first 5 to 10 minutes of the game tonight was very similar defensively. I was a little bit nervous in the first 10 minutes because I thought this is ridiculous. We're just trading baskets, giving up layups, giving up threes. And obviously they locked in as the game went. I thought that defensively they were really good in that second half.
And it seems like Ohio State couldn't miss in the beginning, and we were missing wide open shots. It almost seemed like the regression of the mean happened throughout the game, where Ohio State was shooting.
Ohio State had some good looks in there, and like
they
I say,
did.
Layups and threes, right? As Coach Close always talks about, layups and threes. That's a sign, is your defense effective or not? And it wasn't early, but it was as the game went on. And Ohio State pushes it in transition. So if Iowa's not back in transition, they'll hurt you because they got athletes, they got guys who can run, they got guys who can make threes. But like I said, once they got down, I think they checked out, and it's too bad because they got talent.
Yeah, that late first half run, and then Fran's starting to finally use that used or lose it timeout. He used it at the end of the first half, and we had the possession arrow at the second half, and we got the good look at the end of the first half where I think it was Tony hit that 3 right from the right wing or left wing to end the first half, and
Tony, how 3 from 3 tonight. That's good to see, Frank. I every time I see him shoot a 3, I think, okay, let's go. Because I want him to shoot with more confidence,
Correct. Yeah,
guys who are going under on him, make them pay.
Right.
Now, how good were your seats tonight, Corey?
Does it matter? Because you could have moved. We moved down. I moved down about, we were probably 10, 15 rows. I was not courtside.
Okay.
But
hey, Tony, don't let Corey fool you. I done seen Corey sitting courtside at least 5 of the games this year. So he's the man down Iowa. So he sits right there. Him and the Hawkeye mascot are buddies. They're right there on the court on every whistle. So
you thought it was Matt Gatens. It was actually me, Tony. But no, we were about 15. We were about 15 rows up, right at the center. But it was. I mean, you saw the pictures I posted under. It was bare, and that's unfortunate. The university, I'm not going to rip anybody because we got a foot of snow here. The university, I wish they had done a little bit better job maybe promoting the free because there were hardly any students there. Yeah. You're giving away Ponchero's burritos. You're giving away tickets, and you still can't get students to come. Devin, you were a student at Iowa. I mean, you were a basketball player, but I just feel like we've regressed with student attendance. I don't know if the numbers would say that, but I mean, obviously your era there's transition and there were growing pains when you played at Iowa. What are your thoughts on attendance and what how Carver could improve?
I mean, when I was there, it was pretty. We was probably about half full when I first got there. It's about 9,000 people. They was putting tarp on seats to cover it up. So, but I think they're a fun team to watch. I honestly don't know what they could do to get them out. Obviously, the snowstorm came. I feel like Ohio State's a big game that most people usually want to go to. And especially after the first game, I feel like that's a game that people should have wanted to show up to because I thought it was going to be closer, honestly. But going forward, I don't know. I think they reach out to students. They try to find ways to get them to come. It's just up to them to get in the building. So
the one comment/question, or however you want to say it, I want to close out on is, did any of you guys watch or hear much of the crowd in that Indiana Northwestern game last night?
I've heard some rumbles. Somebody tweeted something on Twitter about somebody was chanting something. I can't remember exactly.
Well, no, I guess I was more meaning not like chanting, but it was a 50-50 split. And it almost sounded like an Indiana home game. And there's a lot of, that game is go back and listen, Corey. I know it sounds crazy, but it almost sounded like an Indiana home game. And there's, Chicago is such a melting pot for all the Big Ten alumni bases.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, the game is sold out for Northwestern, but I would not be shocked if maybe 30 to 40% of that is Iowa Hawkeye fans from Chicago.
I don't. Well, you might be right. I don't know about 30% maybe. But I mean, if we can't get fans to come to the games here in Iowa City, then why would the alums in Chicago show up to the game at Northwestern?
Because they circle that on their calendar. Like Tony, Frank, you're going to the game at, when they played, what did you say when you said that in that podcast earlier? Which ones do you go to? The ones closer to home?
Yeah, you definitely go to the ones closer to home. I mean, for me, I've been to 3 Iowa home games this year, but me being in Indianapolis, I'm definitely going to hit the Illinois, Ohio State, IU, Purdue, and Northwestern games because it's easier for me. I guess to Corey's question earlier, I'm sorry, Tony, but I had to add my 2 cents in. But I've been to quite, pretty much the entire Big Ten, as far as away games. I mean, at least once. I think Carver, again, I'm new to Carver. I'm 3 years invested. I think we got to just cater to the students a little bit more. I mean, I joke with Caitlin Clark because she sits where the parents sit during the men's games, and I've joked with her out, and we had a brief conversation, sorry to call her out, but I just said, there should be more entertainment. I mean, when you go to the Carver Hawkeye games, there should be an MC, there should be a DJ, it should be live during those timeout breaks. It should be, which they do a fairly good job at, but making it more of a fun party for students may bring more students to the game. Just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, there's the giving away. So they said what I saw was they were giving away free Pancheros burritos to the first 1,000 students. There wasn't 1,000 students there, so I should have seen if I could have passed off as a student. I don't know if I can pass off as a 20-year-old.
You could, Corey.
But
you could, Corey. You could pass off.
I should have done that. But they probably would ask for my ID. But yeah, and then here's what's ridiculous. They have the big burrito lift, which Devin, did they have that when you was Pancheros? I shouldn't even mention, but they're not sponsoring the show. Did Pancheros sponsor the games? Did they have the big burrito lift when you were in college?
Yeah, they still had it. I'm surprised it's still going on, honestly.
I guess it's good publicity, but what's funny about that is they usually throw out burritos during the big burrito lift. They threw out like 2 burritos. So I don't know if they had went through their burritos when they were handing them out to the students, but they were kind of skimping on the burritos. It just seems like sometimes they get a little bit too skimpy with certain promotions. Like, they had a promotion with hot dogs and they were handing out hot dogs to like 2 rows of people. It's like 2 rows of hot dogs. That's what you can afford. Anyways.
Well, it's like I said, when I talked to you after the Minnesota game, Minnesota was giving away a Fire TV, Apple AirPods, and like all this stuff for giveaway for an Iowa played Minnesota on Super Bowl Sunday just to get the students there. And I don't think I've ever heard of Iowa giving away all those things. That's the stuff that gets kids to the game.
I'm at the wrong games because I don't see none of this when I go.
You listen.
I don't get nothing for free when I go to the games.
You don't need to be going to the bar, and believe me, that's a long drive for a dead atmosphere this year. It's a great venue, but not the year. Yeah. Tony, appreciate you calling in.
Thanks for your time, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Cole has a super chat. Appreciate the super chat from Cole. Predictions for the Iowa-Nebraska game coming up. That's the last regular season game for Iowa, so we can, of course, bring it up because I know Cole's a Nebraska fan. Nebraska's playing well right now, man. Frank Tominaga, how much have you seen of that young man? I don't know what they call the Japanese sensation. That kid looks like, I don't even know. He doesn't look like a basketball player, not because he's from Japan, just because he looks like he should be a freshman in high school. Like he's a little guy, and man, that kid's a baller.
Man, insanity part 2. I think just his confidence. Incredible. I think, and me and Devin talk about this all the time, even when we were coaching AAU, when a kid is confident and his confidence is flowing, the team is trusting him, the coach is behind him, man, the sky is the limit because it's like, how can I lose? If I don't shoot the ball, I'm only hurting myself. If I shoot the ball, the coaches keep me in. So how can I lose in this situation? So confidence is key, man. That's on every level of basketball. And then right now, the kids got it.
All right, I'm just going to warn you both. We never know what we get into when we go to our call-in line. So let's go to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Thank you for calling Iowa postgame here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
What's up, Airball Archie? I'm horny as fuck.
All righty. We'll move on to our next caller, Ryan. Ryan, welcome to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. How you doing, sir?
Hey, gentlemen. Thank you for taking my call, all of you. Great win today. I thought when we played Ohio State, we got out-toughed. Sens and Boss, an amazing player. Not as good today, but awfully good. There's that kid off the bench that didn't miss a shot. And yet, I wanted to get your guys' take on this thought. So, real quick, I'm going to look up the box score. Chris Murray is obviously the headliner of this team, 20 points, 5 rebounds. Rabracha, I think because we blew out Ohio State early, we didn't have to play him. 10 points, 2 rebounds, but he's been amazing all year. Tony Perkins, what can I say? 24 points, 3 assists, 1 turnover, and he gave my 2 boys a memory of a lifetime. Because, as you know, Corey, I met Coach Close as well, but we went to the Illinois game. And Tony Perkins is like my kid. It used to be Peter Jock until Tony Perkins gave him a thrill of a lifetime. So thank you, Tony Perkins, for that one. The other thing I'm going to say is Iowa football and Iowa basketball is so different. Because if you want to call Connor McCaffrey nepotism, then it's never been such a beautiful policy. 13 assists, no turnovers, 6 rebounds, leading the team, 7 points. Connor's the glue, I think. And, you look at the Big Ten. Purdue got beat by 14 by Maryland today. And I'm thinking to myself, if we get, say, a 6 seed, get by 3 and steal 1, we can finally make the Sweet 16. Before I listen to that comment, I just want to thank Devin and Mr. Franklin, or did I get your name right? Frank.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He responds to Mr. Franklin
for being here and giving
Franklin.
us your time. Devin, I wish you got to play under Fran a little longer because those were tough years, But it sure looks to me like you're quite the Hawkeye. So God bless you, man.
Appreciate you.
And thank you guys for taking my call.
Appreciate you, Ryan. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you.
Devin, let's talk about you for a little bit. So we talked a little bit about your transition. Tell us about what Devin Archie's been up to. I know you're coaching, but what else have you been up to over the past 10 years or so?
Few years. Since being home, it's just been coaching. I've been working with youth. So right now I work at a public high school through a nonprofit. And so I teach a class on mentoring or social emotional learning. So I'm doing that, just helping young men out. Right now I'm volunteering with our high school program. I go in, I help the guys out, the bigs out. So just giving back that way. I'm hoping soon. I want to give back for a few years. So after this, I'm hoping soon to make a transition into coaching. Starting off small and working my way up eventually. So
when are you coming back to Iowa, man? Have you been back to Carver?
No, it's been a while, man. I've been talking to Frank about it. I need to get out there,
Absolutely. Come up with Frank, man. You need to we got 2 well, you might not make it. Are you going to the Northwestern game, Frank?
Yeah, I plan on it. Yes.
Man, that thing's going to be, you need to zap some tickets over to me. That place is going to be, I tried to look at tickets and it is sold out and tickets are expensive. I don't buy the comment earlier about it's going to be mostly or half Iowa fans. I think a lot of Wildcat fans are going to pack that place. And when I was watching, I watched the extended highlights of Indiana Northwestern. I get to watch the whole thing on television. Mm-hmm. it was loud in there. And those small arenas, I mean, from the rack and these different places, they get loud when they are full. And
they do.
I've heard people say, well, maybe Carver should be a little bit smaller and it'd be easier to obviously fill it up and get loud. But talk about the challenge ahead for Iowa against that Wildcats team.
I think again, it's just coming out with that motor and that hunger. I mean, the first time we beat them, I think it was starting off neck and neck. I think if I remember correctly, you can correct me too, Corey. Like, wasn't it back and forth initially at the beginning of that first time we played Northwestern?
I believe Northwestern was up 9 at one point in that first half, I believe.
So I'm going to say this. I don't think Northwestern is going to be the real deal, which we've been seeing the entire year. And this is the reason why. If we look at the past 2-3 seasons, Northwestern was battling for the last place in the Big Ten for the past couple of years. Now, they do have a senior guard who's been there and rode the wave and gotten them through some tough times. But again, this is a brand new team for them initially. They lost Nance going to North Carolina. So now in those tough games, even the Big Ten tournament, who's going to be that go-to guy when times get tough? And to Iowa's point, we have that chemistry. Tony's been there, Aaron's been there, Chris been there, Connor's been there, Patrick's been there. We know who to go to in tough times. We know we can come from deficits. I mean, we've seen Iowa down a couple of times this year, and they say you don't see them press or in a hurry or taking bad shots to get back in the game. They have that team chemistry like we've been down before. We can bring it back. Now, this year, the pressure is more, again, on Northwestern. If they can maintain and be the real Northwestern we've been seeing the entire year, which I don't think it will stand up and remain, but who knows? So I think, on Sunday they'll come and try to revenge themselves against that loss. But if we come out and attack and score quickly like we did against Minnesota, I think we'll be right back in a shootout like we were the game before. So I think Iowa can pull it out with a slight win, but it will be a tough environment in that Wildcat arena.
Devin, you guys are both real close to, I'm sure you have a lot of Purdue fans around you. If you're a Purdue fan right now, should you be concerned with 3 or 4 losses right now?
I wouldn't be concerned. I'd rather get them out the way now before the tournament starts. I think that Purdue's tough. Purdue's a good team, composed. They got their veteran guys, and then Edey, he's just an animal. So I'd rather get those losses out the way now before you get to that tournament. That way they can make their run. So.
I do find it fascinating when you watch these different games, and I had a friend of mine made that comment earlier today, and it seems like in recent seasons this has been exaggerated. Every year it's up and down, and I'll give Iowa credit. They've won. Let's see. I saw this stat prior to jumping on here. Let me see if I can find this. They have Iowa has won 9 of its last 12 games. That's a pretty darn good stretch in there. I mean, I know it's not, 10 straight, but it's 9 of your last 12. That's hard to do, Frank. I mean, in this conference with how much teams are up and down, teams are going on losing streaks. But for the most part, Iowa has been, ever since January 5th, dating back to January 5th, which was basically the start of Big Ten play. They started 0-3 in the conference. And let's not forget that Chris Murray and Aaron Eulis didn't play against Nebraska, against Wisconsin. I believe Chris played against Nebraska, but it was like his first or second game back. Same with Penn State. Right. Once they got their feet under them, they got back from break. They have been probably the second or third best team in the conference. You're
correct. Iowa only beats themselves when they're not playing like themselves. I don't think a team is truly outplayed us besides Purdue. When we're bringing ourselves, again, we can beat anybody in this NCAA. But when we're being scared or punked in a sense, like how, we did against Purdue when they came out with Edey and Braden Smith knocking in a couple threes, and we kind of fell into this shell. We was not the typical Iowa Hawkeyes that we normally see. But like you said, once we get our feet under ourselves and we feel confident, we know we can come back from deficits, or we know we got the depth to kind of bring us back in the games, and Fran and Diller strategizing to bring this team back in the game. I mean, there's always hope. Again, I mentioned this before last time, Corey. I think, again, that 2020 class has shown and proved that they're one of the best classes that Fran has brung into Carver Arena. And also, too, nobody knew that we were going to Big Ten last year. We were talking about this the exact same time last year about we don't know about the Hawkeyes, but they end up winning the Big Ten. So I mean, there's always hope for winnings, and I'm very confident in saying that, hey, we have a very good chance of finishing out the season with victories.
Appreciate the super chat here from Chad. Very proud of how this team plays. Connor McCaffrey dropping dimes and a new career high for assists. I believe he had 0 turnovers as well. Go Hawkeyes. Yes, he did. 13 assists, 0 turnovers. That's pretty hard to do, right? I mean, I know, Devin, you weren't a point guard, but 13 assists, no turns at any level.
Impressive,
Absolutely. Couple comments that I wanted to get to in the chat. By the way, our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line is open, 515-635-1601. Or you can click the link that I'm throwing up in the live chat again, or it's in the description below. A couple comments in the chat that didn't want to miss. LFG, does this win lock up a tournament bid for Iowa? They would have to collapse, Frank. I mean, they would have to collapse at this point. They are solidly in. I think right now this win doesn't move the needle, and the Minnesota win didn't move the needle either. But as of right now, they are probably a 6. I mean, that's kind of the consensus. It sounds like they're 6 or 7, hovering in that range. You look at the different bracketologists out there. That means they'd have to really collapse in these last, 5 games. And even, you lose, you're not going to get punished for losing at Northwestern. You're not going to get hurt at all by losing at Indiana. You'd have to lose, I think, at Nebraska or at home against Nebraska. Let's see, who else do they get? Michigan State at home. I don't really know how much that hurts. You don't want to lose at home. That's not going to hurt you much. And then what's the other game I'm missing? They play one other team.
We got Northwestern on Sunday. Then we have
Wisconsin.
Okay, yeah, Wisconsin. Yep.
At Wisconsin, and you're not. I know Wisconsin's down, but they beat Michigan, looked good last night in doing so. You're not going to get punished that much by losing at Wisconsin. I actually think if they lose out, I think they're probably in, because I just think the resume as a whole, they've got enough quad 1 wins. Unless those quad 1 teams fall off, I think they're in. Let's go to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Thank you for calling Iowa postgame here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hey, Corey, it's Ryan. How are you guys?
Good, Ryan. How are you?
Doing good, Ryan.
Oh, really well. I really enjoy the show this evening. It's great getting Devin and Frank's perspective. And I thought about it a long time, and I thought I would go there. So, guys, forgive me. I'm just a naive Iowan that doesn't really fully understand limitations, I guess, to Iowa's ability to recruit talent. And I wanted to ask you guys if you could tell me truthfully, or tell the fan base here, we're listening, what obstacles are there for Iowa to recruit elite urban talent to Iowa? Is it a lack of Black culture in Iowa City? Is it that we don't have enough press or media to showcase guys' skill sets? Or just what? I'm really curious to know what you guys think. Is it our image out of state? Is that a negative? And people would say to, like you, Devin, why did you want to go play in a farm state? That kind of thing. I'd really honestly what you guys think about it.
Devin, you want to start with you, and then we can go to Frank, because obviously, Frank, you were part of Tony's recruitment. Devin?
Absolutely. I think a lot of recruiting goes to the coach itself, right? That coaching staff. How are you going to develop a player? What do you see? What is your vision for me as I come to this program, right? Is it a 1-year plan, 2-year plan, 3-year plan, et cetera? And now with these NIL deals, what do you offer me? I think that makes it tough with recruiting. When you look at Iowa, Iowa doesn't have any pro teams. So everybody loves Iowa. So that media, that stuff is going to be there, right? But it's more so about the program and that fan base when you go to a school. And I think that's the big thing for Iowa right now, is because I was looking at the coming in recruiting class, what they have coming in. And I was like, I was thinking like after winning the Big Ten, they would be able to get a couple top guys in there. But hey,
Well, they do have, in their defense, they don't have a bunch of great athletes. I don't think anybody's claiming that, but they do have 3 of the top 150, and according to on3.com, if you're looking at recruiting rankings, and maybe all 4 could be. I think the one guy that was left out was Owen Freeman, who I think is the top 100 guy in a lot of the other recruiting rankings. But Ryan, I understand where you're coming from. Frank, do you have a further comment to that?
Yeah, I agree with Devin. I think it's the coaching style. I think that's the biggest thing. Is like also too, what is the coach actually looking for, and what's going to fit into his system. I know when Devin and I were coaching, when we were recruiting, high school athletes, we were kind of looking for guys who could create off the dribble. Create their own shot. Because we were never coaches who were emphasis on having 10 to 15 plays within the offense. We were pretty much a 4 or 5 set offensive team, and we like guys that can create off the dribble, and create their own shot. So again, Fran's style may vary from ours, but he tends to kind of find the right guys that can gel together and make this team work. And also, Ryan, to your second point, I think Iowa is seen as a prominent school because it's in the Big Ten. Having that Big Ten badge brings a lot of kids. It's the Big Ten. It's a tough conference. I am going to play against those Michigan States, those Penn States, those Purdue's, those IU. So I will get seen and get national attention. And to Devin's point, Iowa doesn't have any pro teams. So that media and that attention will be there. So I'm sorry?
Was that – did you guys think or feel like, the Iowa City environment was Pedmall 101, just bad news for you, Devin? I mean, you mentioned that a little earlier. You hinted that you had some off-court issues, and I'm just kind of curious. I mean, do you feel like, people are singled out in Iowa City or whatever, or things are just a little too intense, or it's too limited an area, or whereas you go to a school like Minnesota, I mean, you're in a big city, you've got a lot of alternatives. I mean, there's a lot more there. Is Iowa City able to compete with larger venues, like Columbus and Minneapolis, even Madison, or not? Does things need to change there in order for that to be more attractive for kids that are largely urban in their backgrounds?
Where you gonna go, Corey? Were you gonna say something? I
was gonna say something. I mean, I know he asked you the question, and I'll throw it to you after this, Devin. But Ryan, I just want to make a comment. Champaign is kind of a dump. I know you didn't bring up Champaign, but Champaign's kind of a dump. It's nowhere close to Chicago. So they've had Io DeSumo and Kofi Coburn, and I mean, they've got a freak right now.
Yeah,
I know
they're in-state kids, Corey. There's a little different. I mean, that's always been the case with Illinois. I mean, if they could keep their own in-state talent in-state, I mean, they'd probably dominate the Big Ten.
Well, Kofi Coburn.
As Iowa kids, we can't do that. We always have to go outside to get elite urban talent because we don't have enough. We have good talent, but we just don't have enough.
Well, they have lost some
that's
good.
The point. So how are we going to be able to recruit and be attractive to kids that, hey, we promote Farm Strong, and that's not something most urban kids want to be connected with.
Well,
I mean, they don't do that in Madison or Illinois either.
First of all,
if you think about it,
Kofi Coburn's from New York, so that's point one. Well, I was going to say point two. I'm telling you, I live in Ames, Ryan. You know that.
Yeah, I know. Well, okay, I got that. I know Lincoln and Ames are a little different. I got that.
No. Listen, what I'm saying is Iowa State's not having problems.
I know the roster and what it is too. I know that.
Iowa State's not having problems recruiting talent right now. They're tearing it up on the recruiting cycle first, especially 2024. Ames ain't no different than Iowa City if we're talking about it being urban and not being as diverse as maybe a big city like Minneapolis. So I don't think it's that. Devin, do you have a further comment to that topic?
I don't think it's that.
What they thought.
Sure. Go ahead, Devin.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, I don't think it's that. Once again, I say it goes back to just the coaching style and culture. Man, that's what get kids in. So I remember when I believe Fred Hoiberg was at Iowa State when I was there. When they called it transfer U, he had all those guys in there. Royce White, And so, like I said, it goes back to culture and if they want to come and play for you.
That's true.
Ryan, we appreciate your call as always, sir, and great discussion topic.
Yeah, it makes my head scratch, Corey, particularly when I think about football, because there we have developed NFL talent. We really have. And that's what's always perplexed me is why aren't we getting elite, talent that you would think would want to be prepared to play on the next level. And I thought football had done that really quite well. And maybe not as much in basketball, but Fran has had some success. So, but I appreciate you guys.
No, we appreciate you, Ryan. Thank you.
Thank you for being Hawk fans. Really.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate the phone call, sir. And yeah, I mean, I think I understand where he's coming from. I would also argue that, I don't know that it's like, yeah, Dosunmu was a Chicago kid. Harrison Barnes was from Ames. He went into North Carolina, has had a wonderful NBA career. DJ Carton was an Iowa kid. He's not having a great NBA career, but he's a pro. And he was a highly rated kid out of Iowa. So there are kids in Iowa who are really good athletes. The recruiting base in Iowa is maybe better than sometimes we think, especially in football. But, I mean, there have been really good athletes. Greg McDermott, I know he ended up playing for his dad, but really good basketball player, had a really good NBA career. And like I say, Iowa State's not having any problems recruiting right now. It's amazing. And they're going to be a tournament team again this year. They've been top 25 almost all season. And Otzelberger's second year there, they're not having problems recruiting pretty darn good talent, and they did really well in the transfer portal. They got a guy, Oshuni'i, who Iowa wanted as a 5 last year, and part of that, I think, is they maybe had an advantage with NIL earlier than Iowa did. But I think all those things, Devin, you brought up NIL, that is a big thing, and that's why I am actually excited. I haven't really talked to Frank about this, but I'm excited about Iowa's prospects in the portal this coming season. And I'm talking about this coming summer because they are more built with their collective and with NIL opportunities than they were a year ago. And I know, Frank, you like Josh Ogundele, but the bottom line is they're likely to go to the portal. I just, unless some switch flips on for Josh, they're going to go to the portal and get a big man. And they're probably going to be able to pull it off now because they have better NIL prospects now. And that does make me excited for the future because Fran does play an exciting brand of basketball. He's said to be a player's coach. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that are in place, and with NIL being in a good spot for this university and for this athletic department, I think positive things. I feel confident. I feel positive about the future. Even losing, and by the way, don't forget Keegan Murray might be the rookie of the year in the NBA. So let's not let's not totally act like Iowa doesn't get really, really good talent. And I know he was a 2-star kid. He had one Division I offer, and it was at Western Illinois. He might be the rookie of the year. So, anyways, Devin, would you agree with that Fran was – I know you went through a bunch of different coaches, and maybe Fran's changed over the years, but would you describe Fran as a player's coach?
Yeah, see, when I was there, I didn't really get to build that relationship with Fran like I wanted to, but the guys that he recruited and brought in, absolutely. His loyalties is second to none. I mean, you see at some games, you see him walk on the court and get in somebody's face, so he protects his players. He has his players' best interest. So that's one thing I can say about him.
Who are you closest to? Which coach did you build the closest relationship with, head coach?
Licklider. And that's because he was an Indianapolis guy, though. So I knew Licklider when he was at Butler. And so I already had that connection with him and his assistant coaches.
Do you stay in touch with Todd?
I speak to him. When was the last time I talked to him? Maybe last summer. I'm close with his son, John, though. So,
where is John now?
John's living here in Indianapolis.
Oh, he is. Is he coaching?
No, he has his own business, actually.
Okay. So not basketball related.
Oh, no.
Interesting. Okay. All right. We do have another caller on our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Before we do that, thank you to Ova Hawk reminding everybody to hit the like button. If you have not already done so, appreciate that. The Welcome Project PA says, such a great show. Devin and Frank are a great addition. T. Perk, really a fave. Love his game. Absolutely. Apparently Frank didn't like that comment because he made his screen black for a second. Carrie says, Devin, do you have a special or favorite memory from your time at Iowa?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think my favorite one that stands out to me. Well, there's two of them that stand out to me. I think one my dunk against Nebraska. That was a dream to be on Sports Center, and that was like number 6. So that was huge. And then I would say beating Purdue at home.
Before you go on, I just want to that's in your bio on the Iowa site, right?
Is it?
Oh yeah.
I haven't seen it.
In top 10. I love that.
Yeah, and I would say the second one would be beating Purdue at home when they had Juwan Johnson and them. When the fans stormed the court, that was a special moment. So
that was I'll be honest, and I was really young when you were at Iowa. But man, I remember that game. I remember where I was at watching that game. Like, that was a game that changed the program. I really do believe that game changed the program. With you and with Eric May and Jared Cole and Matt Gatens. Talk a little bit about Matt. I know you probably got to know Matt really well. He's on the staff now. Tell us a little bit about your relationship with Matt Gatens.
So when I got in, I met Matt when I first got in. Matt was a crazy competitor. Probably one of the best shooters I know that I've seen. He's just a fighter, man. So when I saw him on that coaching staff, I knew it was a matter of time before he came back to Iowa, because he's passionate about that city and that team. And so I'm happy he's there.
Absolutely. I think he's a great addition and good guy. And I know that your career at Iowa maybe didn't go exactly how you envisioned, and there was a lot of trials and different things that happened. But I appreciate you and everybody who was a part of that, because maybe you didn't think that you made this huge impact, but I think everybody in that transition period had a huge role. And people always give credit to Matt for that, and Eric May and these guys who are maybe starting, and obviously Matt was going to be a Hawkeye regardless who the coach was. But you guys did deal with a lot of, it wasn't just you. A lot of guys dealt with a lot of different coaches there. And, Iowa basketball's in a good place now, and it took some difficulties, and not to treat you like a sacrificial lamb, Devin, but
no, when I was recruited there, I knew where the program was at, right? And I knew that it was down. I had talked to people about it before I committed, so I knew all that stuff was going on with the program. I think what's bittersweet for me was the progression we made when he brought in Devin Marble and Aaron White and those guys from there at Utah, and just seeing his system get implemented and the growth and to where it's at now to win the Big Ten championship. That was a bittersweet moment for me, because it was like, man, I remember, like I said, when the stadium was half full and nobody was really showing up to accomplishing something like that. So it was huge.
Got to get back in Carver, man.
I'll be back soon to see a game.
All right, let's go to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Thank you for calling Iowa postgame here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Lomansky. Corey, good evening.
Good evening, Lomansky. How are you?
Good. Let's dive into this recruiting thing, because it's very interesting. And really, both programs at Iowa State, and even University of Northern Iowa for a while, when you look back in history, for our population and lack of, just population, we've done pretty good historically. It's just kind of like, when you're in Alabama and Georgia in football, there's a pretty good recruiting base. Penn State has an awful nice recruiting base. They're within a lot of good football players in that area. Look what's happened, with Rutgers basketball. They finally got a good coach, and people gravitate to that good coach and respectable. Devin, my apologies for being caught in the middle of transition. I've had different bosses come in and leave, and you've got what do you want to call it, equity with one coach, and everything's new. And think back to when I was college and the transition from high school to college. So I know a lot of history. My government teacher played for Iowa. He played with Don Nelson, who you've heard of Don Nelson, and the Golden State Warriors and the Celtics. And Devin, you kind of just got caught in a whirlwind, because Steve Alford did the program no favors. And then you go from Alford to Licklider. So Licklider had kind of he's teeing off in bad weather. He didn't get a lot of years either here. There was a quick switch to Bing McCaffrey. And so I appreciate you having faith in Iowa City and the Iowa program. I think the recruiting, Corey, you can debate me on this. We usually get along, but we can debate on this. We've had Player of the Year in Garza. The Murray brothers are panning out. And Fran has stated, I've caught him stating it, that our guard from Indianapolis is one of his best recruits he's ever gotten to come to Iowa. And we put a lot of pressure. We put a lot of pressure on him, and he scored 30 points a game. And I think with a lack of, I like Fran's style. I think it's attractive to young basketball players to get up and shoot the ball, trust them to make a play. I can't remember who it was, but one coach got criticized. I was listening to the Badgers. I think it was like a little pressure on Wisconsin basketball right now that, they're kind of confined in a system and afraid to make a play. And that comes from some podcast, Wisconsin basketball. So I think people follow coaches. I remember when Kansas and Roy Williams just stripped Iowa of its talent. Heinrich and several great Iowa basketball players ended up at Kansas and just got out recruited by a coach. So I think your coaches really matter.
Mm-hmm. Lemansky, real quick, you want me to go on a mini rant real quick? I know people for some.
If you didn't go on a rant, I'd be disappointed in you, Corey.
I'm so sick of the narrative that and I respect our caller earlier who brought up avid listener to the call. He brings up why can't we get talent here? And I think maybe he's a bit misguided because I think what Lemansky just said is absolutely rings true. Player of the Year with Luka Garza, you got Keegan Murray, you've got the second leading scorer in the Big Ten right now, and Chris Murray, I believe, behind a guy who's probably going to be the National Player of the Year, and Zach Edey. The narrative that Iowa can't get talent and that what it all is based on. Most of it is, I'm not speaking for our caller earlier, but for a lot of people who say that, I think a lot of it's based on one thing, and that is the fact that Iowa hasn't gotten to the Sweet 16 since '99. That's it.
Bingo.
They just get mad about everything with Iowa basketball because they're mad they haven't gotten the second weekend of the tournament. That's all it is. Like, Iowa develops guys. Their recruiting has been just fine. They haven't been landing 5-star kids. Asante Bowen was a 4-star, by the way, from the East Coast. All right. Really talented, athletic young guy. Frank, I'm sure Tony's talked about him. He's going to be really good.
Yeah.
I think it all centers on frustration, not getting further in the tournament. And the only thing left for Fran to do is have NCAA tournament success. And some people will say that's the only thing that matters at all. And they have a right to feel that way. I don't agree with that. I think winning the Big Ten tournament's a big accomplishment. I think making the NCAA tournament on a year in, year out basis is a big accomplishment. Devin, I'm guessing you could give some people on this show some pretty good perspective as it relates to the success of this program now. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to be elite. I talk about that with football all the time. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be great and getting to 16 and being a Final Four contender and wanting to win a national championship. And I get that. And I'm not downplaying that for basketball. But there is perspective here. And the NCAA tournament is so hard. I mean, it's just a tough tournament to win in. It's one and done. You have one battle. This past year, Iowa beats Richmond, I believe, 9 out of 10 times, probably like 95 out of 100 times, frankly. Mm-hmm. So that's my rant, Lemansky. It wasn't as entertaining as maybe some people wanted. But the point is, I think Fran gets a bad rap with certain things because of the fact that they haven't won in the tournament. I think their recruiting has been okay to good. And frankly, with what they've gotten out of their recruits, that makes me think, man, if they could land a couple of 4 or 5-star guys, we're going to be even better. And if they go to the second weekend this year, I think it should shoot down all of it. I really do, because I don't know what else people want. Like tonight, and I was observing this when I was in the arena. I understand we got a foot of snow. I'm not blaming fans for not being at games. But I also, in the back of my mind, recalled that a week ago, I looked at the number of seats that were available still for the Ohio State game tonight. This was before the forecast came out, so people didn't know it was going to be bad weather. And there were seats everywhere, right? I mean, this game wasn't going to be sold out regardless of the weather. And this has been a trend, fans not coming to games. And part of that is I think Iowa needs to do better with promoting and getting students involved. But I do think part of it is a lot of fans are so hung up on the lack of NCAA tournament success. But besides that one factor, and I get it's a big factor to some people, I don't know what else people want. This team has an opportunity to get another double bye this year. I mean, they're 9-6 in the Big Ten Conference right now. So I know it sounds like I'm just being an apologist and I'm just defending Fran, but I just don't know what else people want. They're getting the player. They had national players of the year these last few seasons. Actually, you could argue 3 straight seasons because Luka kind of won some of the awards the previous year. They've been to the tournament basically every season but one since 2013, 2014. So the NCAA tournament success is not the final hurdle, but it's the big hurdle, Lemansky.
I hear you, brother. The other thing is that, Iowa shares the ball. And they didn't share it as much as when they had Garza down deep. But irregardless of the Garza later years, I think Tony Perkins is one of the biggest big-time recruits Iowa's had. And I go way back to Cal Wilkesburg, who has the assist record that Connor threatened, and that goes back with the beams on the old field house before Carver was even built. That record stood the time 50 years, and, Connor came close to breaking it. But Tony Perkins, I have never been upset with his play since day one of coming to Iowa City. And fans, I was a below-average high school basketball player. I think most fans, and I'm going to take a shot at 50% of fans, you don't realize how hard it is to go to college, be an above average basketball player, get playing time as a freshman like DeSante Bowen. He's a big time recruit. He can't get on the floor because of the talent ahead of him. Don't think it's DeSante not performing. He's got enough talent ahead of him, can't get minutes. And now we're into Fran's going to screw things down for tournament time. He knows his record in the NCAA, but Tony Perkins is a big-time recruit. We share the ball. His best days are ahead of him, and without him, we're screwed. I mean, you're in the Big Ten, baby. Look at Purdue, how dominant they were, Corey, and now the Big Ten is chewing at them a little bit. They played them long enough, and I was part of that, figuring out Purdue basketball, how to beat them. We're in that stretch where we kind of opened up the strategy how to beat those double. Look at the doubles that he's getting now, the big man from Purdue. Everybody's doubling fast now.
Well, just one more final point, and I'll let you go, Lemansky, unless Frank or Devin has something. I just want to acknowledge it. Frank, you're not going to, paint a picture that's not accurate. Tony did not have a bunch of high major offers, and I am not ripping him for that. But the fact of the matter is, Lemansky, when you talk about recruiting, we also have to accept the fact that we're not just talking about recruiting. We're talking about recruiting/development. Because regardless of if Keegan Murray came here as a 0-star or a 2-star, he left as a 5-star. He did. He left as a 5-star. And Tony sure ain't leaving as a 3-star or a 2-star. So I just, we never knock Phil Parker's defensive recruiting in football, Lemansky. We never rip that because they develop their guys, and we never knock Iowa's ability to recruit tight ends. For the most part, we don't, because they develop tight ends. So if you better be good at either one or both things, right? You better be good at recruiting or developing. And that's the problem with Iowa football on the offensive side. It's not good at either right now. But that's a story for a different discussion. Fran has proven he knows how to develop guys. And I think you add a couple of pieces, this team can go from good to great quickly. And he's still got to do that. But I don't think it's that far off. And I do think Fran is trying. And I think with NIL, they'll have a shot at doing that. An even better shot. Lemansky, appreciate you taking the time. And Devin, Frank, is there anything you wanted to add before we let Lemansky slide?
Nope. No, great question. Thank you.
Thank you for the call, sir.
Yep, enjoyed the show, and I agree. I'll leave it with this. I don't understand why we're all measured by the NCAA tournament. Just focus on St. Peter's, what they did to Kentucky, and if you can't infer some things about it, you can have a great basketball program and launch in the future without going to the Final Four. And I'd like to go farther too, but it's not the only measure. Devin, you're developing young men, and I think Devin and Frank will agree with this. Your job is to win games, but it's also develop young men for the future. I'm a youth basketball coach in my past. What you're doing, Devin, is close to my heart. And when you're a major basketball coach, you're supposed to develop men for the future, because the largest percentage are not going to be in the NBA. They're going to go out and pass on what they learned to young people into their business, be better family members. And sometimes we get too caught up in this glorified launch the trophy and leave the court. It's bigger than that. Thanks for your program, Corey.
Thank you, Lemansky.
Thank you,
sir. All good stuff, gentlemen. Appreciate you guys being here, and I agree with the caller and our people in the chat. It's been an honor to have you guys both. Always fun, Frank, and you're welcome back anytime. Devin, don't be a stranger. Don't be a stranger to the show. Don't be a stranger to Iowa City. We want to see you around. So you keep up the good work, and both of you guys, you guys are a part of the coaching world and shaping young men and women. Let's get to let's final topic before we say goodnight to everybody. I know you guys are for anybody that doesn't know, these guys are sacrificing because they're in the Eastern time zone. So, Gary's been asleep for the last hour. You guys are still with us. I'm going to ask you about the game on Sunday, though. Iowa Northwestern, big time game. The Wildcats rolling, coming off that win against Purdue, looking for revenge. Iowa got them in Iowa City. This is an opportunity, though, at a really good quad one win for the Hawkeyes. Let's start with Frank, and then we'll go to Devin. Frank, how does Iowa get it done against a really good backcourt, Boo Buie and Chase Adichie?
I can see this game being a tight one. I can see it being back and forth from the jump. And I think as long as we stay aggressive and we get on Northwestern from the beginning, I think we have a chance to fight. But if we get down like we got down against Purdue and we play uncharacteristic amongst ourselves, it can be an ugly battle. But, again, I'm confident after this Minnesota win, after this Ohio State win, I think we're going to be rolling to Chicago with the same type of swag like we've been having this entire season. So it's going to be a close one. Iowa would have win, I would say, by a margin of 2 to 4 points. It'll be a close one, but we'll pull the win out.
Devin, your thoughts on the Wildcats and the Hawkeyes?
Yeah, I agree with Frank. I think it's going to be a tough game. I'm going there. Road games can be tough. I would like to see Patrick. With him being back, I'm happy to see Patrick back, but I really want Patrick to make this a big game for himself. I feel like if he comes out and plays well, I think he'll get the guys excited. And from there, I think we can win this game. So
Nathan Mertz brought out, apparently Coach McCaffrey mentioned that Rebraca and Patrick have been battling the flu. So that kind of an explanation as to why we didn't see Rebraca late. And, hopefully he's back by Sunday, but to get a win when guys are sick, obviously that's always a good thing. And Jesse, it's a big win when the biggest complaint from Corey is the number of burritos tossed out. So, and yes, Ben, I asked the same question. Why didn't Fran go with some of his bench guys earlier? Yeah, I kind of wondered that too at the 6-minute mark. But again, he kind of tried to with DeSante and Dix, and I don't think he liked what he saw. And, teaching moment. I don't know if I disagree with that. I don't know if either of you guys disagree with my take, but I wondered that at one point. But then I thought, no, he's teaching. You don't want to get guys hurt, right? You'd hate to see Chris Murray go down with a knee injury at that point. But I don't think it was just we're padding stats. I think it was teaching moments for those young guys.
Yeah.
So, all right. Appreciate everybody being here and everybody who's been a part of our coverage this evening. Couple things I wanted to mention. Wanted to give a quick shout out again to our sponsors. First of all, Iowa Smokehouse and their unbelievable snacking, whatever you're talking about, whatever you need for snacking purposes. And of course, the Super Bowl is behind us, but March Madness is coming, folks. Visit iowasmokehouse.com for their steak bites, their meat sticks. I tell you, their jalapeno meat sticks are awesome. Check it out. They've got great jerky as well. Visit iowasmokehouse.com. Tasting is believing. Use that code Hawkeye for 15% off your order. $50 orders or more, $50 or more orders, I should say. get free shipping as well. And it's an Albia, Iowa company. So it's a local state of Iowa company. Tasting is believing in iowasmokehouse.com. And Brad Van Meter and his team down at State Farm support us by supporting our sponsors, including Brad. Of course, he's part of the largest auto insurance company in the country. His team, they've been in business down in Des Moines since 99. So they're experienced. They know how to treat you right. They're going to treat you better because not only you're supporting our show, but you're a Hawkeye. So Brad's going to treat you the right way as a Hawkeye. 515-256-6480 or visit him online at www.bradvanmeter.com. As a final recap for folks this evening, the Hawkeyes defeating the Ohio State Buckeyes 92-75. The Hawkeyes have now won 5 of their last 6, 9 of their last 12, dating back to January 5th. Hawkeyes had 5 players reach double figures in scoring 25 minutes into the game. How about that? Tony Perkins, nephew of the guy on your far right, 24 points this evening. Perkins has totaled 20-plus points 3 times now this year, and a couple of those have come here of late. Several of those actually have come here of late. Connor McCaffrey, 13 assists, 0 turnovers, and his 13 assists are the most by a Hawkeye since Jordan Bohannon had 14 against Minnesota back. This can't be right. It says 2010. I know Jordan Bohannon played a long time, but I don't believe Jordan Bohannon played with Devin Archie. So, University of Iowa. Maybe a friendly typo from the communications people. So McCaffrey was also plus 25 tonight. So that's always a good stat to own. Had 7 points and 6 rebounds as well. Chris Murray, 20 points, 5 boards. The Hawkeye Jr. has scored 20-plus points 12 times this season, second most in the Big Ten. And you, of course, guessed who's number 1, Zach Edey of Purdue. The Hawkeyes closed the first half on a decisive 15-3 run over the final 5 minutes, including a 12-0 scoring burst over the final 2:20. After starting 2 of 12 from 3, Iowa made 5 of its last 6 3-point attempts from 4 different players in the first half. Iowa's last 5 field goals of the first half were triples. The Hawkeyes made 10 such triples this evening. The Hawkeyes are now 10-1 when making 9 or more in a game. Iowa held Ohio State to just 2 offensive rebounds, marking the second straight game. The Hawkeyes held their opponent to 2 offensive rebounds. How about that stat? Hawkeyes really doing well right now, cleaning it up on the glass, and we'll see if they can continue that against a feisty Northwestern team. Iowa's 47 first-half points were the most the Buckeyes have allowed in a half in a conference game this season. Second most in all games. They gave out 51 against San Diego State back in November. Iowa had a +7 turnover margin, marking the 3rd consecutive contest the Hawkeyes have had a +7 turnover margin or better. Fran McCaffrey has now won 124 regular season Big Ten games, now just 2 behind Coach Dr. Tom Davis for most in program history. So we're going to make that mark, I think, before the end of the regular season. So hopefully maybe we'll get that at the Michigan State game, sold out game in Carver a week from Saturday. Iowa improved to 7-0 this season when it scored 90-plus points. The Hawkeyes will be back in action on Sunday, 5:37 to be exact, 5:37 p.m. Central Time, BTN inside Welsh Ryan. Did you say you're going to be at the game, Frank, or no?
Yep, I'll be there, front row, sitting next to you, Corey.
Yeah, that's right. We'll head over to the Ritz-Carlton after that. So
sounds good.
All right, Devin, Archie, Frank Henderson, appreciate you both being here. Devin, once a Hawkeye, always a Hawkeye, man. You are always welcome on this show. You're always welcome in Iowa City, and we hope to see you in Carver soon.
Appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
All right, folks, for Frank Henderson, Coach Frank Henderson, Coach Devin Archie, I'm Corey Brada from the Hawkeye of the Storm. We'll talk to you on Sunday.
Thank you.